Welcome back, listeners, to the Brighter Side of Blue, the podcast. Coming to you live from the Blue Line Technology Studios. I'm Danny.
I'm Tommy.
I'm JJ, Zen Master.
The Zen Master JJ. Hey, JJ, you notice that aroma that's coming from the back room? Catered by retired Sergeant Tommy Bottini. Brought in honor of Mardi Gras. He brought in some gumbo.
He's semi-retired.
Semi-retired.
He's an integral, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Whoa.
Screwed that up. He is very important for the Brentwood Police Department.
Senior crime analysis.
Integral was the word.
Are we just going to let him off the hook with that?
Which one?
That whatever he butchered right there during that seizure?
I said integral.
Okay.
Is that
no,
okay?
That's good.
We'll take your word for it.
Man,
That's good.
that was bad.
Word Soup by JJ. 370 cities now. Over 370 cities.
This has been a fun ride. I hope you guys can tell we're having a lot of fun. We hope you guys have a lot of fun listening to us, and just keep doing what you're doing, and tell your friends, tell everybody that you know, that give us a shot. You know, we're not saying we're for everybody, but a lot of the feedback we're getting is extremely positive, and people are picking up what we're putting down. So that's very, very important to us.
Things have skyrocketed since we brought on executive videographer Jack Milliken. Hey, Jack, can you give us some highlights on the social media and numbers and such?
Yeah, we're all over social media now. We're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, the old TikTok, we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We've got shorts out there on YouTube. We've got over 5,000 views on our last few shorts on YouTube, so that's going super well. You guys are kicking ass here on this last Jen Williams episode on YouTube. The views are doing very well on YouTube there. Just make sure that you're liking all of these. If you see one of these shorts, comment on it. It helps expand who can see it. And, be sure to rate the show. And it's as simple as when you're on Spotify, hit those 5 stars if you think this is a 5-star show. I think it is. And it's just that easy. That's if you get value out of this, help us out.
Thank you, Jack. So, Jack, I don't know how to respond to comments because I saw, and this is being truthful, I'm not being sarcastic, I saw at least 3 comments that they want to see producer John in those New Balance shoes with white high socks and those jean shorts with pockets.
Did you
see the comments?
I think I know what you're
Did you see it, producer John?
I did, and I did not pay that person to put that on there. But I'm gonna wait till you guys finish your campaign, and then I'm going to start the producer John campaign, which will blow everything out of the water for sure.
Looking forward to it.
I'm very much looking forward to it. I have no doubt that that's a true statement. That's
available on YouTube now, video, and then Jack's gonna change the platform, and we'll also be on video on Spotify. So if you like watching and you want to see us, which I think we're better sounding than we are looking, but
Hey,
speak for yourself.
I got one thing.
Very
the
true.
Spotify or the YouTube, if you hit on the description, it'll open it up, and then that's where you can find the merch link.
Yep. And that's how you can support the show right now.
Now, that's the only way we're supporting it.
Right. Bills are piling up.
Right.
You need help. And then, but in the future, we're going to have some neat events we're talking about that we're going to get out there on the road, and we're going to have an event coming up probably within the next couple months. We're putting it together. We're going to have some news on the upcoming shows, but we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be fun.
Very good.
Things are popping.
And hey, producer, executive videographer, because we got reprimanded by producer John.
He's the hierarchy. He's at top.
He
He's
set
at the
us
top.
straight on the hierarchy.
Set us straight good.
So producer John is the boss of the Brighter Side of Blue, and we're just going to acquiesce to that.
Yes. I'm looking at him. He scares me.
Yeah, he scares me.
And he seemed a little crabby today.
He does seem off a little. He seems a little cranky today. I'm not going to lie to you.
today.
I think those jean shorts are a little tight.
I know what it is. It's the Bud Light he bought was warm.
Oh,
so
violation.
That was easily fixed, though. I knew exactly what to do.
Is the gumbo not sitting right with you?
The gumbo is delicious. It's all in the roux, as Bo will tell you. And
It's all in the roux.
I think he did an amazing job on it. Thank you, Bo.
Thank you.
And I'll be honest, Huggy wasn't going to be able to make it, and I told him that Bo was catering. Look who showed up. Huggy.
Huggy comes in.
Comes flying in.
Perfect. Because we need him tonight because he's got something to play, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
we do.
He does. You gave him an assignment.
I did give him an assignment.
Hey, you know, one thing we're never going to be without. Producer John, can you give me a little bit of some Zenish atmosphere? But we can never be without the JJ Zen moment any longer because it's going crazy across all the continents except for Asia. We're still a little bashful in Asia.
Yeah,
We'll get there. I'm telling you, we'll be there. It won't be a problem.
This Zen's going to get it.
Okay.
I brought
I'm actually
this
feeling-
music in just to kind of woo the Asian audience.
Sounds like, I agree. That's perfect music.
I hope it works. Come on, Zenny Joiner.
Well,
what do you have for us?
I'm going to pass it. I'm not going to really pass it, but I'm not going to have to read it this time.
Thank God.
It's relative to what we did today, dude. We had a pretty heavy show today, or you're going to hear later. And this is going to be kind of appropriate. So one of the best speeches I've ever heard, it's a little section out of it, happened, I think it was 1993 at the ESPYs.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty much it. So hit it, Huggy.
And when people say to me, how do you get through life or each day, it's the same thing. To me, there are three things we all should do every day. If we do this every day of our life, you're going to have, what a wonderful, number one is laugh. You should laugh every day. Number two is think. You should spend some time in thought. And number three is you should have your emotions moved to tears. Could be happiness or joy. But think about it. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special.
So the show we have coming up is with Steve Dodge, the current chief of police of Sunset Hills, and Joe Cruz, who was his partner when he came back to work after Steve Dodge lost his partner, Bob Stanze. And later in the show, you're going to hear about that. And what a fitting Zen moment for a show that we just got done taping. And again, you know, it's a tragedy, but there is some laughter in there. We had a good time with those guys. We just can't thank them enough for coming in, telling the story, especially Steve and Joe, his partner, who really helped him through all that. And what they're going to hear is what you guys are going to hear coming up is just powerful. Steve opened up to us, and just like Jim Valvano said, we had quite a day.
Well, like Jim Valvano said, that was a very good job, JJ.
Thank you.
That was one of your better Zens, and it was very appropriate for what the show was.
That's going to be hard to top.
It's going to be very hard to top. But, you know, listening to Steve Dodge, we managed to laugh during this episode.
Yep.
We managed to cry, and we were in deep thought about some of the things he was saying. So it's very appropriate that that Zen. So you really hit a home run with that one.
It took a lot of courage for him to come in here and
Yeah,
Absolutely.
talk about
Yeah.
it all these years. It still hurts. He did an incredible job, and Joe Cruz did a great job.
Yes.
Yeah, very true.
To do what Joe did and step up and actually want to ride with Steve when he came back and bring that in.
You know, I never heard that story.
Really?
I knew that. Well, obviously, I knew they became partners, but I never knew how it came about until then. So that was cool to hear.
I heard some stuff in the show too that I'd never known before, and
Yeah.
very powerful, and we had fun. And whose phone is that? Howard.
Oh man,
Here we go. The guy was just yelling at us
JJ.
all
Why
to
do
turn
I
our
give
phone off.
JJ any ammo? No, my phone's off. It was an alarm. I'm heading out of town. I was supposed to check in on a flight. I'll never hear the end of it from JJ.
no, it's okay, but things happen.
Hey.
He took the high road on me. JJ
Yeah.
took the high
I
road.
don't know. I think he wants peace.
Well, I keep feeling he puts these DraftKings football games. I keep winning them, so I feel kind of.
So you feel bad?
I want him to keep putting those games
Right.
out there.
Oh
Think-
my God, JJ, I'm so proud of you. You took the high road.
No, but
You have a
real
safe
quick,
trip,
boys,
too.
Real quick, the family of the week is the Cruz family. As you heard us, we just talked about Joe, and Joe's father, Russ, was on the police department for 35 plus years, retired as a lieutenant. His older brother Andy was a policeman for, I think he retired as a sergeant after 21 years. And Joe, who you'll hear from later, still on the police department and spent a lot. He's a lieutenant, currently a lieutenant of the trained Metrolink, and longtime member of Mobile Reserve and a good friend of ours, and as is Steve and
A member of Squad 4.
of Squad. Well, you're going to hear a lot about Squad 4 coming up, and I think we're going to get some Squad 4 hate mail.
I'm going to tell all the squads 1 through 5 not to listen this week.
JJ,
Yes, sir.
if you could go back in time and for 1 hour in any space in the universe, any time, you get to go back for 60 minutes. You're only a fly on the wall. You can't change any outcomes. You can't do anything. You can't touch. All you can do is watch, literally a fly on the wall or whatever. Where would you go?
I would go, I'm going to steal Bo's because I really like what he had to say. The moon landing. I'd like to be in the ship, or actually, I'd like to be on the moon and see if it actually
As
landed.
it comes to you.
If it actually does.
Or in the studio.
Or in the studio.
Oh,
Did it
you're not a
actually happen?
believer?
I don't know.
You know what, though? That's my pick, but that'd be really disappointing. That's where I get to go, and it never really
It never
happens.
shows
Never
up.
happens. You're on the moon going, what's up?
Right. That'd be cool.
When's this thing coming? It's 1986.
I only got 10 more minutes. Come on. Jesus Christ. Oh,
Producer John? 60 minutes of time.
I'd like to go back to the 1970s and watch Raquel Welch take a bath.
I don't
That's
even
kinda-
know what to say about that.
kind of creepy. Kind of creepy.
It's so.
Just look through the window?
I get it.
Are you going to look through the
To me,
window?
I'll be honest, John. To me, she was probably the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, in bar none to this day.
Definitely.
She was unbelievable.
Yeah,
When she was in the
something
Planet
to
of the
look
Apes, we lost the whole young generation.
There's a lot of things that happened in the history of the
That's
world and
John's.
universe.
I'm just helping him out.
at. Hey, whatever. It's his hour.
It's his hour. What do you got for us, Tommy?
I would go back to the building of the Pyramid of Giza, and I want to know how it was built.
Yeah, because that's a huge piece.
Dude, it has 2.3 million stones that weighed 2.5 to 15 tons apiece.
Which hour are you going to go? The
Hey.
first hour or the last hour?
In the middle.
In the middle?
I want to see how they moved all this
Tom,
stuff.
I can answer it.
What?
3 letters. UFO.
That thing stays at 68 degrees year round in the middle of the desert. It's 1 inch, less than 1 inch off of true north. Now, you're going back to Egyptians, way back when it was built, and you're telling me that these people were pushing around these stones, and the stones came from 500 miles away.
And
How did it happen?
How about leverage?
Well, I guess you're going to tell us when you get back from your hour.
That's exactly right. I'm coming back with some news. Goddamn it!
Yeah, you're going to come back with some
I think
knowledge.
it was in I think life as we know it was wiped out, and there's a life that we didn't know that
that
figured it
built
out.
that and it survived.
That's just me. I got theories.
Producer
know
John,
me.
what were you going to say?
UFOs.
What's yours, Danny?
Well, I'm a little traumatized by Producer John's right now. I just can't even fathom that.
Should I have said Florence Henderson?
No, you were
She in the
correct.
Brady Bunch?
Yep. That's even wronger.
That is wrong. That was a wholesome family show that I watched
All of a
every
sudden,
day.
he's peeping in the bathroom window.
All right, forget the whole thing. I'm just going to go back with Sawyer. He'll have a buddy. And we'll watch the pyramid get erected.
I would go back to an hour. I'd go to Bethlehem when the 3 kings brought their stuff. I'd be there watching that whole.
That would be the particular incident.
Yeah, that's it.
A lot of stuff in the Bible that you could probably go
Yeah,
back
you
to.
could go back to, but I'd go there, and I know that's a little bit the polar opposite about Peeping Tom producer, but that's what I would do.
That's a good one. I don't know if it's as good as mine.
No, I like your pyramid
Oh.
theory. I really do.
What was yours again, JJ?
I don't remember.
The moon?
Yeah.
Being on the
What you brought that up one time, another
At a
time,
bar.
and we got some JFKs.
Well, the worst one we ever got was an intelligent person that I thought was intelligent said, she wanted to be inside the cell to see if Jeffrey Epstein truly hung himself. I'm
did.
like, I don't care.
He did.
He has no pulse, and that's all that.
He did.
Yeah. But that's a waste of an hour of time. That's, to me, that's the worst one. I really like your pyramid one.
Thank you. That's unusual of you to compliment me on my opinion.
Hey, if the moon landing actually happened.
Last week, you just told people
Don't get
flat out
that.
I was full of shit about the Antarctica.
Yeah, and I checked
and
that.
I'm people agree with me.
Was it Argentina?
Argentina has territory in Antarctica.
They claim in territory, and the UN. I did further research.
most
and the United
territory.
States does not acknowledge that as being true. So Argentina says we have territory, but the
They
United
don't
States
acknowledge a lot of shit that's going on.
Okay, all right, we're not going there.
Right. Non-political, right?
Are we going to bring this back down and get to the show?
Yes.
Okay.
We are, but there one little thing that we did find out, and you'll hear the stories coming up, and the Stanze family was mentioned in the story, and Michelle and the twins, and Will. And Will was a year old at the time, or right around there. And we found out after the show, after executive video producer Jack was, we're butchering that title, but
Yeah.
We can
come
make
up
that
with one.
simpler, especially for me.
Right. But we found out afterwards, as Jack listened to the story, is that he went to school with Will Stanze. And we thought that was kind of neat.
Wow.
And he went to St. Gabriel's with him.
And was your brother or was your uncle or your dad that rode with?
My dad's the one who rode with Bob, and then Joe Cruz's daughter Emily also went to school with Will and I. So it's a whole
Wow.
circle.
St.
Wow.
Louis is
Fam-
it is a
wow.
small town. St. Louis.
Wow. That is pretty cool. So, well, that's a perfect lead in to our interview with Joe Cruz and Steve Dodge. Hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you next week.
Peace. Hit it, Huggy. All right, let's get started, Tommy, with a little tough episode of Brighter Side of Blue. You know, all of us out there in the law enforcement community, you know, when you kiss your loved ones goodbye before you go into a shift, you know, some people think it's just a thing we say. You don't know if you'll come back, you know, but it does happen, and it's happened 23 years ago in the city of St. Louis, a really rough one. August 8th, 2000, we lost one of our fine young officers, Bob Stanze. And tonight we have Chief Dodge with us, Bob Stanze's partner, on that day, August 8th. And keeping with the Brighter Side of Blue access, this is the first time that Chief Dodge has ever talked openly and in detail about this. And it's going to be a tough show for us, but I think it's going to be important for the awareness of what law enforcement does every day when they leave their homes, not knowing if they'll make it back. Chief, thanks for coming along on the show tonight. And we know, hey, we're a bunch of jokesters usually, but tonight this is the real deal, and this is what law enforcement puts on the line every time we go out the door. And thank you for coming on and talking about something that's very tough.
Also joining us is Joe Cruz, and Joe's here, and you guys will hear the story as it unfolds. But Joe, he took Steve as a partner after the incident, and they'll talk about how that partnership formed. And welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
So, Steve, just Chief Dodge, a little bit about you that I know. 23 years with the city of St. Louis, retired as a lieutenant. You also have a law degree.
Yes.
And you went out to Sunset Hills and became the chief, and you've been out there for 7 years. You've been part of our family for all 30 years of those, and Chief Spees and all of us, we've known you for all those years. But Chief, if you don't mind, let's just go into August 8th and tell us a little bit about that day.
Sure. So there was a shooting that happened in Berkeley, and it was on, I believe it was at 170 and Airport Road. A Berkeley officer by the name of Antoine Easterwood had conducted a vehicle stop at that location. During the course of that traffic stop, Officer Easterwood was shot multiple times, and the suspect fled. He sustained, like I said, multiple gunshot wounds, was in very serious condition. And so Berkeley Police Department called in St. Louis County to conduct the investigation. One interesting thing about that is Bob and I saw Officer Easterwood at the downtown holdover. He and I were booking a prisoner, and Antoine was picking up a prisoner for Berkeley. So St. Louis County picked up the investigation. A good friend of mine, Pete Morrow, who was in Crimes Against Persons at the time, he was part of that investigation, along with Rick Will and Joe Nickerson. So they were working the case, and they would come up with some leads and come up with some names of some subjects who, they had intel that were in the city. They would share that information with Bob and I, and then Bob and I would go out and try to find these guys. And I want to say, they give us a name. We caught one guy. They'd interview him. It wouldn't pan out. They gave us another name, information on him. We went out there and looked for him and find him, and then they'd interview him, and that wouldn't pan out. There was another subject they had information on, and he kind of fit more of the description a little bit, and just he was wanted out of California, I believe, for sexual assault. So the information they had, he really made him to be a strong suspect in the case. So we were given all this information. The additional information they had provided us is that he was driving a purple motorcycle, and that he had family or friends or something, or had been seen staying above a confectionery in the area of Marcus and St. Louis. So that's the information we had, and for a couple of weeks we'd go by that location trying to locate the subject.
So real quick, Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so you were getting the information personally. It wasn't like broadcast throughout the police department that they're looking for this. You were helping out a friend in the county, like you said, Pete Morrow.
Correct.
Was giving you information, knew the area that this guy might have hung in, knew you were in mobile reserve.
Yes.
And knew you. So that's how that was. The information
Yes.
was being. It wasn't like it was broadcast to the whole police department.
No, they would give us the information,
Okay.
and then they give us a name. Hey, we're looking for this guy. He's supposed to be in this part of the city, and obviously being a mobile, we had the whole city to go out.
Free reign.
Right. Exactly. But we could, try to track him down. And another side note to this is Antoine was in the police academy with a county officer by the name of Paul Gordon, and Paul and Bob are really tight. And so there was another nexus there that obviously you don't need any more motivation than we already had for shooting a cop. But the fact that Paul and Antoine were in the academy together, and it's just a little added
Right.
motivation there as well. So we kept going by this location looking for this motorcycle and looking for the subject who we had a name and everything else and description, and no luck. And then on August 8th, 2000. As many people have talked about, we went to Biggie's, me and Bob, and then Jim Patterson and Rob Ernst, and we all had lunch together there. And I don't think we were really assigned a district that day. Because usually what they do is when you come into mobile, they assign you a district. They give you 4 districts or something like that. Or maybe the 8th district was next up, but usually the first district's a wash, so I don't know. Because you're always eating during the first district, but so I don't know if the second district was the 8th, but that's what Bob decided, hey, let's go up there and take a look.
Okay.
And so I remember we were driving down St. Louis, and we saw the purple motorcycle parked right there, and that was the first time we had seen it, and so we drove back down behind the confectionery right there. It was on the southwest corner
Of Marcus
and
and
St. Louis. And so we drove down the alley. We came back around, And as we were coming down to the shop, to the corner of Marcus and St. Louis, there's like I want to say a tan Toyota Celica, and the suspect had come out of the store and was walking towards this Celica. It was like a rental car. And I go to Bob, I go, is that him? And Bob's like, yeah, that's him. And so Bob stopped the car. We both came out with our guns drawn. Put your hands up. He was compliant. Ordered him to the ground. I said, Bob, hey, you cover him. I'll handcuff him. Went and handcuffed him. And he had a distinct tattoo on his arm that we knew about, that we knew whether or not it would be the suspect. And I looked on his, after I got him cuffed on the ground, lifted up his shirt sleeve or whatever and could see the tattoo. And I knew we had him at that point, that was the guy we were looking for. So we were pretty excited because we knew this was, probably the guy.
Right.
So stood him up off the ground, conducted my pat down of him, searched through his pockets, ran my hands along his waistband, shook out his shorts, everything else. But what I didn't do, thinking back on it, is I didn't pull the handcuffs back and search behind the handcuffs. So Bob says, hey, call Tony. Lackanek was our sergeant at the time. Get a hold of Tony on the Mobile Reserve channel and let him know, we got him. So I get on there and tell Tony, hey, we got him. I don't think Tony really knew who him was at the time. But I said, hey, we're up here in Marcus in St. Louis and we got a, suspect in custody. You can respond. So by this time, Bob had put him in the back seat of the car. And what I did not know at the time, which is something we did on occasion, which was very important that Bob did, was he handcuffed him to the seatbelt because we knew we had a pretty big fish. And so he handcuffed him to the seatbelt and we started interviewing. And I was in the front passenger seat and Bob was kind of leaning in to the driver's seat. So while we were interviewing him, I heard a large, what I thought at the time was an explosion. Smelled the gunpowder. And then knew that he had a gun and he had shot. Bob kind of yells, oh shit. And he starts towards the back of the car. At that point, I kind of dive out of the car from where I'm at. And when I do that, my gun falls out of my holster because I just had it holstered, I'd unholstered to point at the suspect. So I'm halfway in and out of the car with my feet in the car, and my gun's on the ground somewhere, and I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna need that. And somehow it ended up underneath the car. I don't know how that happened. So I reached back and I got my gun, came around the back of the car, engaged there, fired several shots, and you could see him still moving around. My concern was he's, going to try to shoot again. There was a telephone pole right next to the car. Fired several more shots from there. At that point, I think my gun ran dry, so I did a reload there. And I wasn't really liking the telephone pole for being in good cover, so at that point, I kind of ran towards St. Louis Avenue, and there was a car parked right there on the east side of Marcus on St. Louis, right across from the shoe shine place that was there at the time. So at that point, I look up and I can see Bob laying on the ground, kind of halfway on top of a sewer that was there onto St. Louis Avenue. And he wasn't moving. So the problem is I had my radio was on the Mobile Reserve channel. That's what a lot of times we do. We'll keep one typically your minutes are on the mobile reserve channel, so we can communicate amongst ourselves on different stuff. So then I wanted to make sure we got some help, and so holstered my gun, pulled out my radio, tried to find the SOD channel, and then put out the officer down, shots fired. And then during that time, I could see the suspect moving around.
And he's still in the car.
He's still in the car at this time, and I could see him moving around. So as he did, I would take my shots.
And then the troops started showing up.
Well, and then a 6th District car pulled up, and he pulled up pretty close to the suspect vehicle. And so it was kind of at that point, my concern was he's going to run up to the car, and I didn't want him getting shot. So at that point, I left where I was, and it was actually Jerome Jackson, who I was in the academy with. He was a 6th District officer. He was the first one on the scene. And I said, hey, he's got a gun. Well, at that point, he had jumped out the window, and he was almost kind of like dangling by the seatbelt.
So he's still caught up in the seat.
Yes, he's
so
still
what Bob
cuffed.
did there
Yeah.
prevented him from running away.
He'd have been gone.
Okay.
He'd have jumped out, and he'd have been on his way.
Right.
So, yeah. So in that regard, Bob kept him from escaping.
Wow.
So I ran up to Bob. The guy's yelling at him with the gun. I ran up to Bob, and Bob was unconscious. And I reached, to get a pulse, and there was no pulse. At this time, John Blaskowitz, who's an 8th District officer, who's now a lieutenant with the police department, he pulled up. And I was like, hey, we just need to get him off the street and get him to Barnes. Not, let's get him there as quickly as you can. I didn't want him laying there in that street.
Right.
So we loaded him up in the car. I was in the back seat with Bob. He was laying on my lap, and John drove the car to Barnes. Unfortunately, and this is the only time I've ever seen this in my career, but the siren didn't work in the police car. So it was like, yeah.
The one time you need it the most.
Yeah.
But John did a great job, and he got us there
Sounds like it.
as fast as he could, given the circumstances.
So you're not communicating with anybody at this point other than you, John, and you've got Bob in the back. And I'm sure, are they trying to ask John questions of you? And so you don't know what's going on at the scene at this point, obviously.
No, no,
Okay.
I don't. And I know there was mass confusion. I found out later there was mass confusion. I realized that when I was down homicide.
But you go to the hospital, and then what happens?
So eventually we get in the hospital. They pull him out. I know that the doctors, tried everything. They put us in the waiting room or the quiet room. I don't even know what they call it. But they were in there for a while working on Bob, and then his cousin, who was a 7th District officer, Nick Stanze, showed up with his partner, and he was in there, and that's when they came into the waiting room. The doctors did, and said they did everything they could, but they tried everything they could, but couldn't save him.
So you found out before you left the hospital.
Yes.
And then I'm guessing that somebody comes and gets you and takes you down to homicide at that point.
Yeah, Jim Wood.
Okay.
Woody.
He's
Woody?
So.
Woody.
Holy
Well,
cow, I didn't know.
At least we all get a quick chuckle out of that,
Hey.
right?
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, Woody was, he couldn't have been nicer and more understanding.
Great guy.
And he was in the passenger seat, and I can't remember who drove, and I feel so. And Jim would know.
Did he take you to the right headquarters?
Right? That's a valid question.
Tommy, did you know that? Did you know what
This is the first I'm hearing of it.
No, I knew.
you did know?
What? Yeah, I
I
knew.
never heard that. That's the first time I heard that.
So you get down to homicide, and Your brother Rick is a Clayton police officer at the time. I believe he was a sergeant, correct?
No, he never got promoted.
Got to throw that dig in on your brother. Huh?
No, he never even had a chance. I don't think.
So you're down on homicide.
And I don't even fault Clayton for that.
So you're down on homicide, and Rick comes down, and Rick takes you home after, I'm sure, how many hours of just writing down statements.
I didn't. To their credit, I didn't. I mean, I gave them an idea of what was going on there. One of the issues they had is they thought there might be more than one suspect, and I'm like, no, there's only one.
Right.
That was some confusion, but no, and I gave them an explanation, but obviously I was.
Right.
Was the suspect struck at all? Did he catch any
I think he was
rounds?
shot like once or twice or something like that.
Yeah.
So then Rick takes you out to his house, and I'm just going to set this up, and obviously you've just gone through what you've gone through, and I'm going to kick it to JJ here because there's a very neat story
And
with Mobile Reserve.
I know he's never heard this, but he'll start figuring out. When it first happened, we got wind, it was a rumor, and I was off. We were in the opposite shift of you. Jimmy Long pulls up in front of my house and says, "Hey, I think a mobile officer's been shot." So he doesn't know anything. So I go inside and I actually call, and I call Tony Locknick, and he answers, and he tells me what happened. And I call Jimmy, and he's at the gym we had there on Macklin, and he just falls apart on the phone. And I said, I don't know what to do. So we kind of only thing we know to do is we just all go to Mobile Reserve. All the Mobile Reserve find out.
Interrupt you real quick. Jimmy went to the academy with Bob, correct?
Yes. Do you know that?
Long.
Yeah,
Yes.
they were buddies, and I didn't know Bob as very well. I knew him from training because we were on opposite shifts, and I had talked to him, and he was just a great guy. And someone said, "You got to sit next to him. He's funny as hell, and he'll just have these these funny remarks and stuff." And I did sit down one time we were sitting together training, and he had me dying laughing. He's just a funny guy, and I really hadn't known him that well at all. But anyway,
And Jimmy and
Anyway.
Bob went to the 7th District together as well.
well, Jimmy, we all meet up at Mobile Reserve. Everyone, the whole unit. There's how many officers at that time? 40?
They were making relief, and we were due to be on, so it was like right at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So that put the entire unit together.
Right. And with our big roll call room, we had a bunch of chairs, and there was never chairs in there. So we all get there. There's chairs all lined up for us. So we all sit down, and Colonel Atkins, who was a captain at the time, and Crusoe was probably a lieutenant or a captain at the time. They're there with this grief counselor, this female, never seen her before. So we're all in this room, and they say, "Hey, she wants to talk to you guys." So she talks for Joe. You were there. I don't even remember how long she talked, but no one was really listening to her.
And
We're
people, just another interruption, and I'm sorry, but
That's it.
mobile guys were coming in from off duty because this happened in
Right.
day watch. There was a whole group, and you guys included, were working the night watch at 6 to 2, and you guys all, once you received the news, everybody went to mobile.
Right. And we
Okay.
knew that's what we were supposed to do. So we all showed up there. So she talks to us for a few minutes. And we're all looking at her like, we could care less what she has to say right now. And Colonel Atkins picked up on it. And he says, "What do you guys want to do?" And we didn't say anything. We said, "We'd like to talk amongst ourselves." And so he leaves. He takes her and Crusoe, they walk out, and we're talking. And Jimmy Long,
Yeah, but her advice was you
know-
just give Steve some space.
I'm going to get to that, Joe.
All right.
Hey, Joe,
get
we
cut off
got a
like
new
this.
interrupter?
Yeah, I get
We got
cut
a new
off.
interrupter.
Yeah. I know this for big.
Welcome, Joe.
Thanks a lot, Joe. No, but Jimmy Long, and we're talking, and Jimmy Long says, he says, "I went to headquarters because he wanted to see Steve." And he'd ran into Steve at headquarters, and he came back to the where we're at Mobile, and he says, "Steve's not doing good. He looks terrible. He's not doing good." And he's really in a bad way. And we're like, we knew that he was in a bad way, and I don't know who said it. We said, we need to go see him. And so I think it was Bill McDonough might have actually said, for some reason, he says, "JJ, go tell them we want to go see Bob. We don't want to go see Steve." And so I get up and I tell Atkins what's going on. I said, "Hey, we really like to go see Steve." That's what everybody decided. And this counselor says, "I don't think that's a good idea. How about we get a card and you all sign it?" And writes it. And I looked at her and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I looked at Crusoe and Atkins. He goes, "No." He goes, "You guys want to go see him? We'll find out where he's at. Let's get in the cars. Let's double up as much as possible. And when we get the address, we'll go train there. So we got the address and we all got in our cars. There's probably 10, 12 cars, maybe more.
Probably more.
All marked mobile.
All marked mobile cars. And we snaked through the city, got out, went to Manchester, unincorporated Manchester in the subdivision where Rick lived. So I remember it so vividly. We drove through the subdivision. It was kind of like we snaked through it. It's a little windy road. And we pull up. We all get out at once, and car doors are all closing. And I'll never forget, we walk. There's a small house, a little ranch-style house, right? Mm-hmm. We walk up, and the front door's open, but there's the glass doors there. And Rick must have heard the
commotion,
the doors and stuff.
Car door slamming.
Yeah, we were trying to be, because it was night, it was late, getting later. So he looks out, and as we're walking up in the front yard, I hear him say, "Hey, Steve, there's some policemen out here." Steve says, "Have them come in." Rick says, "I don't think I can." And so Steve comes to the door. He sees us. He walks out, and this I'm choked up on this, but Steve comes out, and we all surround him, and we hug him, and we tell him it's okay. He's going to be okay. And I know, and Steve stopped, and it was probably the hardest. I never want to go through that again. I know he definitely doesn't either, but so that, and I think, and I can ask Steve, but I think that was the first part of him healing, because he knew we all had his back then, and that's all. That's the story. And I don't know if Joe wants to add anything to it.
No, I'm sorry I interrupted.
As we all tear up a little bit, but that's
yeah,
okay.
But I was for Al Atkins to have the wherewithal to know that he needed to be, we need to do
Or, and I know you don't want to credit the wrong person, but Bill McDonough is the person you remember. Just somebody saying, "Hey,
we
don't care what this thing."
He just said, "Go tell him." So I got up.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and so I went and told him. They agreed, and we did it. And he didn't listen to the grief counselor. No offense to grief counselors; they do a good job, but
that wasn't what you guys wanted to hear, to sign a card.
And I don't think that would have helped Steve at all.
Well, and again, it's there's no set plan on how to handle all this stuff.
No playbook.
Right. If there was, it's like, but again,
Steve, can you talk a little bit about your reaction that night, of how you remember that going down? That part with mobile showing up and what it meant to you?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously because at the time, I mean, other than, I let Bob down, his family down, but then felt like I let the guys down.
No.
And I didn't know how I was going to be able to face them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, obviously when they came out, it meant a lot to me. And it was
just what the doctor ordered for that right there and then.
Yeah, I mean,
It was the first start.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's such a process, and
The process is probably not over it.
it's never over, is it?
And after tonight, it's not going to be over either.
No, I
It's,
got my counselor on speed dial right now. So,
So the next thing I want to get to, Steve, and in talking to you prior to the show, you did not talk to Michelle until the day of the visitation at the funeral home.
yes.
And you knew Michelle prior. You rode with Bob, and you knew her. I mean, she was Bob's wife.
I didn't know her well.
But you knew
I
of
met
her.
Yeah,
Met her.
Talked to her a couple times.
And I think one of the things you expressed to me was just how she treated you when you guys met, and it meant a lot. And I'd like you to just talk a little bit about that if you can.
Well, yeah, the visitation was at Quota on Gravois in the city, and I want to say we all went together. I'm pretty sure the whole unit went together, and they had me go in first. I think the family had their visitation.
can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
No, I'm sorry.
Apparently, it's what you do.
I do. But no, I mean, let's set up the fact. We all know the story that she had a little boy, and she was pregnant with twins at the time too. So I think that kind of adds to the.
Oh yeah, I mean that's.
And
He was getting ready to say that.
were you?
Well, no, I mean,
Probably would have added it in there
You
somewhere.
probably would have thrown it in there, Jake.
But go ahead, Steve. Tell us a little bit about your meeting, Michelle.
well, no. So I think the family and friends, close friends, went first, and then they allowed the police department or the mobile reserve to come in after that, and so they had me go in first, and she came up, gave me a big hug. She meant the world to me, and then I walked in first and went and saw Bob. And this is a story that that his friends tell, and I didn't see it, but apparently there's candles or whatever in there, and according to them, there was one candle that had gone out, and then when I went in to see Bob and went up to the casket, they're telling me the candle lit up.
Wow. That's cool.
So I didn't see it. This is what they're saying, their story, not mine. But there's all kinds of signs you see,
Right.
and
for
that
his
he's
friends,
there.
to bring that up to you
Yes,
is again, it's all part of the healing process. But the way you were treated by his wife Michelle and his friends, and if you want to mention some of his friends, I know you're.
well, I mean,
you're tight with some.
here's what I'll tell you. I mean, Bob's family, Michelle, his mom and dad, were amazing. And then his, brother, Mike, and his sisters, Debbie and Chris, were amazing. But they were all have been nothing but nice. Even when I didn't think I necessarily deserved it, they could not have been nicer about it. In fact, his mom gave me a St. Michael's medal when I graduated law school. And I'll tell that story later. That's a good story there too. But no, the family has been, and his friends, they've been nothing but awesome to me.
Which again, now we're at the second day, but all that, and I know that your mind was probably racing, but just when you get to go back and think of that day when you go home and the way you were treated, probably meant so much to you to get you to the next day, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it did make things. It did. Of course, it helped, but I was still in a real bad place.
Yeah, I can.
But obviously, between the Mobile Reserve officers and everyone was just amazing.
So we're getting through the early start of it, and and as we do here on the show, and Joe and Steve are some of our two of our best friends. Talk all the time, just about every day, and but now we're going to interject a little bit of humor at the expense of Jimmy Long, who again was Bob's academy classmate, and he was a pallbearer. He was picked as a pallbearer for the funeral, and he was riding with JJ at the time, and he does not. It's the day of the funeral itself. The visitation's over. Everybody did what they did afterwards, and I think we'll hear from JJ what Jimmy Long did afterwards.
Well, he drank. We all went and drank that night, and Jimmy drank a little more than most, I'm guessing.
That particular night.
Yes. And so when we had to go to the funeral, and he had to be there. So I remember getting there early, and I don't know why. I drove myself and didn't pick him up. But then someone said, "Where's Jimmy?" I said, "He said he'd be here." I don't know. And so we're getting panicky because he was a pallbearer, and it's getting to the bewitching hour that we had to be there. And so So I jumped in the police car, went to his house. He lived over on Roberts, wasn't too far. And I'm knocking on the door. He comes to, he just got out of the bed. He is a mess, hungover looking. I said, "What are you doing? You got to go you're the pallbearer, dude. You got to get dressed and go. We got to hurry up."
You're all mad at him?
Yeah, I was mad. I said, it's irresponsible, dude. And so I'm yelling at him, "Get dressed, hurry up. We got to get you there." And so finally he gets his uniform on, and he looks the mess still. And he gets in the car, and we're driving there, and he looks at me. He knows I'm mad. He says, "Bob would think this is funny." And he would have, but it was funny.
So now we're going to just go back a little bit to the process of going back to work. So this has all happened, and how long are you off, and what are you doing? Counselors obviously you're seeing at the time, and how many counselors are you? So what's the process of going back to work?
Well, admittedly, I knew, what I'd been through was very traumatic, and I didn't know if I was going to be a policeman again.
So
being-
those thoughts
being a-
were going through your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Being a policeman was the last. I mean, being a policeman was the last thing on my mind. Obviously, I just kept thinking about Shell. She's pregnant with twins, and she got Will, who's still in diapers and everything else, but I knew it was obviously some pretty traumatic stuff I've been through, and I was like, I will take all the counseling anyone thinks I need.
And you were single at the time, and where did you stay during that period? Did you go back to wherever you were living, or did you stay with your
I
brother?
stayed with my brother for a few days.
Okay.
I think through till the funeral, and then I think I went back home after that.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is bring Joe Cruz in. And while this was that process of you contemplating going back to work, Joe Cruz, what I'd like you to do is tell us what you did and who you went to while this process was going on.
So, excuse me. I was interested in, making sure Steve was okay and hoping he would come back to work and try to feel him out and on the short term. I was like, hey, you want to go fishing? Just something to break your thoughts. And we went to a buddy's lake resort, and we're going around fishing, and it's got a little L in it, and you kind of get back in one corner. You can't really see you. And as you come back, you're back in the main spot. Well, in the meantime, Mike Mueller shows up, and him and I don't even want to guess it. Who else?
I know who else it was.
Who else was
This
it?
guy was McDonough, Matt, and I think it was Gurman.
That sounds right.
Hey, Joe, now, did you know Steve very well then?
I knew him pretty well, yeah. Because
Okay.
only because he was one of the original members of the homicide that we knew. That he got pulled into mobile more because of his HRT stuff.
Right.
While we were already in mobile, so it kind of integrated. And
was there.
as we're fishing, they jump out and they come out with AKs and ARs and all kinds
Is
of
this JW's?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah. So
Just so the listeners know, this is 100 acres or
yeah,
better.
we went for a nice
And
peaceful
policemen
afternoon.
would, yeah.
And
100 acres of irresponsible behaviors. That's what it is.
Well, at times. And this particular time, so you guys, Steve had just gone through this, and
yes.
you guys are fishing around the corner. They can't
I'm
see.
trying to find my happy place.
There we go.
So
then
the
you come under fire.
therapeutic day,
Yeah. There.
Oh, man.
therapeutic day turned into a range day. I was like, all right, you want to get out here? Yeah, sure.
But there was a point in time where you went to Joe Spees.
So Steve didn't work with us. He worked actually for Vern Summers, who's a great supervisor, good dude. And in my mind, I kind of thought he needed a change of speed and not to be talk crap on anybody else. Because if you're in mobile reserve, you're one of the best policemen on the police department.
Yep.
But JJ,
We were Squad 4.
we were Squad 4, and we were.
There we go.
we were very arrogant, and
Yes.
Some of those guys were I was.
yeah.
The Hollywood Squad, as they were referred to by other members of the mobile.
I will say that we did some of the best work, and we're very arrogant, and we were a reflection of our
Arrogant. We're just
sergeant.
confident.
No,
We were
Who was your
confident.
sergeant again?
You're arrogant.
We were a reflection of our sergeant, Joe
Okay.
Spees.
All right.
But hey, let me just say this. This will be fun. Bill Burnett was the range guy. He trained us when we were in SWAT. He did the training, the firearms training, the long guns, and he was the most serious man ever. So we're all having a range day when this is the news isn't even out that Steve's coming to our squad, and I still laugh at because someone says, "Yeah, I think Steve's going to come to Squad 4," and Bill Burnett goes, "You got to be kidding me! Are you serious?" And I'm like, "What? Why is he saying that? That's like he's trying to insult us or something."
Well, I didn't have the hair for it, for one.
You did, yeah. Well, we made exceptions.
Good pair of Oakleys will cover that up.
You still don't.
Good. Hey, Steve, good pair of Oakleys would fit right in.
All right, head nod.
But yeah, Bill Burnett. I love Bill Burnett, and he was a great range and great firearms guy. But he was actually kind of pissed at first, and then I think he caught himself and realized he's with Squad 4 right now. He's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then I go,
So Joe, you're talking to, sorry,
No.
moving on here.
I get
So Joe, you're talking to Spees, and you tell him that you think that you would like to ride with Steve if he comes back.
Yeah, if we could bring him back in, I think he'd be a good fit. He's already a good policeman, obviously. And well, I just thought it would be something I had the patience for.
Okay.
And
Wait, did he have a fishing boat at the time?
no, he did not.
Okay, keep going then.
That's the
You're
first
good.
time I were in bass fishing.
You're good. Seriously?
Yeah, so I had the patience, and
First time you went bass fishing, you took under AK fire.
Well, yeah. So now
And did you go again?
now it's easy.
Oh,
Yeah, when you're not getting shot at.
but it close the range.
Yeah.
So I kind of I approached him, and I approached Steve, and I said, "Hey, if you really think you can do this," and I don't think Steve was I don't deserve any credit, by the way. This is all Steve doing this on his own. I said, if you think you're up for it, love to ride with you. I think we could have some fun. And I remember telling him, I said, I don't care. You can suck your thumb and sit in the back seat of the car
Oh, you said we
all
could-
night long.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bother with it, which is unusual for me to say because back then I was
Right. You're
extremely
charging,
active.
hard charging.
Oh yeah,
Steve will tell the story. He was telling me on the phone when you were, because I asked you and Joe Spees, I said, who called Steve? Well, both of you guys didn't know, and then Steve cleared it up. Go ahead and tell the
Well,
story
no,
about
it
what
was
that came.
after the visitation. We all went down to was it Crondelet Park? I think it was Crondelet Park. What's the one right off Jameson?
Wilmore.
I'm sorry.
Francis. Wilmore.
Wilmore. I'm sorry, Wilmore Park. Yeah. And we were at Wilmore Park and we were barbecuing and hanging out, and that's when you and Joe Spees approached me about it. And I was like, here. I hate giving comments when he's right here, but Joe Cruz was the best guy, best police officer in Mobile at the time.
God, squad
Wow.
four.
Sorry.
Just,
I mean,
squad four just
I-
throwing it
there.
on. Vic.
Hey,
I'm right here.
You're
Right-
top,
I'm right here.
you're top five,
That
JJ.
could be a whole episode.
Right. I'm over here.
JJ, they didn't call you soft serve for nothing. So, but no,
That was a nice guy.
but no, and everybody knew, he's probably the best policeman down there at the time. And so for him to ask me that, and my first response was, well, talk to your wife, let her know what you're taking on, some baggage here, and, think about it. But to his point, what he was saying earlier is like, hey, we don't have to do anything for the first month. We'll drive around, we'll look at the architecture, we'll go to the zoo, look at the animals. We don't have to do a thing. We'll ease into this. And I'm like, okay, let me think. Yeah, that sounds good. If I come back, that sounds good because we're going to take this nice and slow. So go ahead, Joe.
And then the first thing, so here comes
Our first shift.
Joe gets a call from one of a long time informant that we can make fun of at another day, but we don't have to mention his name. But Joe gets a call from an informant.
I think he's
the
still
first
alive.
night
So
they're
I'll leave
there,
the Name
yeah.
out.
The first night. So tell us about that first night.
Now he had told me a month before that, and he said if you ever see this guy, he's driving a green Cutlass with a yellow top.
Did he call it peanut butter? Peanut butter top?
Yeah. So I said okay, and it's one of those things you file away in your brain, and no big deal. Well, it's almost like getting a car on the hot sheet. We're just driving by, and we just had this conversation. We won't do anything. We'll just ride around and talk and get your brain right. And then I see that car, and I'm like, oh, damn.
Here we go.
There's that car. So we stop it, and I said, hey, I got information on this car. This guy's selling dope. He says, okay. So we walk up, kind of like a traffic stop, and as I'm approaching, it's kind of like a license, blah, blah, blah. And I know the end result is I want to get him out, and I got to figure out where he's hiding his dope and what he's doing. And while I'm talking to him, at some point he thinks I'm distracted, and he tries to, I think he tried to put dope in his mouth.
He did.
And at that point, I said, hey,
Here we go.
why don't you step on out for me?
Hold on. Can I interrupt real quick?
That's what we do.
I don't know where you're going to
Well,
go.
here. Here. So I'm on the passenger side, and Joe looks over at me and he goes like this, real quick.
Points to his mouth.
Well, everybody knows what that means.
Like,
Yeah.
Hungry?
No, my shoulders just because we just ate. My shoulders slumped. I'm like, I know what's coming next.
first night back. Here
Yeah,
we go.
go ahead.
Next thing you know, we're rolling around on Lindell trying to fight with this guy, trying to recover his dope.
Trying to recover.
Trying to get out mouth dope.
Yeah.
Trying to get the dope out of his mouth.
We'll leave that where it's at.
Yeah.
So midway through, I just started laughing when we were fighting with this guy. I'm like, I look at Joe and I'm like, is this what you mean by taking it easy?
Right.
Is this you're taking it easy?
You know what? You might as well jump right back in.
Yeah. So you're back, right, Steve? Let's go.
Yep,
Guys,
exactly.
here we go.
And we never took it easy.
No.
So from that moment on, we never
No.
looked at the buildings. We never went to the zoo and looked at the animals.
There's always a competitiveness in SWAT 4 between the cars and who could get the best arrest.
Oh, yeah.
Who get the
There was a sergeant
Fun one.
that fueled it all.
Oh, absolutely.
He
Yeah.
is now the chief of police of Brentwood. And speaking of him, Joe Spees, I'm going to go later on, so you just told a very powerful story. But in 2010, Joe Spees started as a captain. He started the officer safety program in his district. And he talked to you and he said, would you be willing to talk to this class? And you did. And I just want to, what did that help? When because of any tragedy, sometimes you got to learn from something and you got to, pass that along so we don't do that again. And in talking to Joe, he said that you just did a wonderful job. And I'm just like, did you feel that when you were talking?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not a story I like to tell.
Right.
But he had come to me and said, he thought it was pretty important to tell the story, especially to some young policemen, to hopefully learn from it, and know what I went through, and maybe have it in the back of their mind every time they go to search somebody. My feelings aside or my ego aside, if I can help save a cop, then that's what it's all about. I can put all that other stuff aside. Then.
Absolutely. And
Hey, Steve, how old was Bob on that day?
I'd say he was 30, 29 or 30.
Right after the incident, and if you don't remember, if you weren't familiar with this, tell me. But did Backstoppers get involved? Did they come on board? And can you talk about it if you know anything about how Backstoppers?
Yeah, no, they came in right away, and they do what they do. They come in. I think they talked to Michelle and gave her obviously a check right away. I don't know for how much, like $10,000 or something like that, just to help cover whatever expenses. And I know they paid. I'm pretty sure they paid off the house. Took care of the kids' education through college. I'm pretty sure.
I think they helped her move maybe so she could change her thoughts.
Yeah. She had moved at one point in time. But the Backstoppers organization is it's amazing. What they
So
did.
she was pregnant with twins, and they
Yes.
saw it through college.
Yes, pretty sure they did.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No, that organization is just incredible.
the one story I like, Steve, is and how Michelle threw you a surprise birthday party. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I would babysit Will, and then eventually, when she had the twins, occasionally I'd babysit the twins, which I don't know what she was thinking there, but I guess learn how to change a diaper and all that. So I mean, but no, it was good for me. It was therapeutic for me because I got to connect with Bob's kids. So it was like any chance I get to be able to do that. It really was. It was like being closer to Bob at the time. So I had just graduated law school. I don't know if I had passed the bar or not, but I was set to watch the kids, and this is her house on Childress.
That's where she was.
Yeah, she was on Childress. And so I show up there to babysit, and I walk, they had a glass door. I knock on there, and no one's answering. I look, and it's dark as can be inside, with the exception of the kitchen. And so I walk in, and it's a surprise party for me graduating law school and passing the bar and all that stuff. So it was,
Cool.
and it was, I think you guys were there.
We were all there.
Yeah, you guys were there.
You were behind the couch.
It was cool. That was the year that we all lived in the same neighborhood. So
Yeah.
everybody, all the families were so close and buddies.
The one good thing about the residency rule, honestly, at the time, is that
absolutely,
we all
100%.
were close to it.
It was cool.
But yeah, I mean, Bob's friends were all there, and his family and everything else, and that's when Dorinda, his mom, gave me a St. Michael's medal that I still have and still wear to this day on my vest.
Very
at
cool.
work. So yeah, it was, like I said, they're all just amazing.
So, and again, this is a powerful show, but you guys are close friends, and you guys are listeners of the podcast, and we have fun on this podcast, and we want to have fun with you guys too. And we've had some laughs, but these guys have come up with some stories that they'd like JJ to tell. They've come up with some of the other episodes where we mentioned stuff they might want to comment on. So we'll kind of kick it to them and let them kind of ask JJ what they. I think Steve, you had a story you wanted him to tell.
This is kind of bullshit because he needs to tell. He wants to tell a story and make fun of me. It's he gets a big kick out of it. I hear it all the time. So
I don't understand how free reign to create has not come up yet. To be honest, I've watched. Listened to all these episodes.
Free reign to create.
Free reign to create
Earlier in the
has not
show,
come up.
when Steve was mentioning mobile reserve, and I just threw in the quick quip of free reign.
That was fun.
We already knew what we were talking about. But go ahead, JJ, tell us why.
What he's talking about is I had a federal trial with Tom Meehan. Everybody here knows Tom Meehan. He's kind of a jokester attorney, U.S. attorney, great attorney.
Likes to have fun.
Likes to have fun.
Friend,
sometimes too much fun, right?
He's a friend. He's a friend of ours.
He's a friend of ours.
Good guy.
And
really
so I'm going on the stand for this. Steve, you remember the case better than I do. I don't even know.
Yeah, it was right off of South Jefferson and like Shenandoah. It was a real good case. It was a really good
case.
Really good
arrest.
drug dealer. And you're going to find out why he's a really good drug dealer, who his attorney was.
It's a good arrest by me, I guess. That's why I was in court. So anyway, Daniel, I saw you looking at him. Did I hit my glasses or something?
Yeah. No.
But anyway, so I go to federal trial. It's against Rosenblum, Scott Rosenblum. If you're from St. Louis, you're a criminal. If you have money and you're a criminal, you know who Scott Rosenblum is. And he's just a high-priced, good attorney. Actually, I've talked to him. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a pretty good guy.
He's a great guy. He's one of the best defense attorneys in the world.
And I see him at the stadium when I work in the baseball games a lot. But anyway, I have to ask him if he remembers this. But I'm on the stand, and he asked describe what mobile reserve does. So I kind of explained the unit. And at some point in my testimony, I said, well, we have free reign to go wherever we want. And it's gotten better.
I think you use the kind of create cases.
No, people said that later on.
It got create cases.
That's the part I don't believe. But anyway, the story always gets better as the story gets told. But anyway, I said we have free reign. And I'll go with Steve and say we have free reign to create our own cases. Well, after every questioning, he said, he'd interrupt me. Go, no, that's okay. That's right. You have free reign. After every time he'd come back and ask me rebuttals, and he would say, oh, that's right. You can create whatever you want, whatever. So I knew I'd screwed up on that statement. So I was like, oh, geez. But as we're walking off, the trial was done. We're walking off. I'm walking with Tom Meehan. And we get outside the courtroom. I look at him. We're walking. He's quiet. I said, hey, how'd I do? He says, well, if your penis wasn't so big, you wouldn't have stepped on it so many times. But he actually used the other word for penis. But anyway, ending on that story, he did get convicted. And he went to jail. So even though I did screw that up, so
you created a good case.
I did. I created a good case.
Kind of uncreated.
That's not right.
So Steve, I think Steve's favorite story. He loves to tell that story. Thanks. Thought we were friends though.
So the other one is I thought it was a good idea, and Joe Cruz had a neighbor, and his neighbors, the husband was dying of cancer. And
another cheery story.
No, but it is, again, got to find laughter in some things, right? So they expressed the fact that they may want to try some edible brownies. And Joe, you take it from there.
So I think if you've listened to this, you probably realize that Tom has somewhat of a history of THC and consumption and whatnot.
He's pretty consistent.
Certainly
consistent.
Very, very consistent.
I will say he didn't stop his consistency while he was a policeman. But he was aware of my neighbor, Chris, who had brain cancer. And he wasn't doing very well, and I think he had a bit of a history with THC as well. And Tom thought it'd be a good idea to bring him over some brownies. So he calls me and he says, hey, I took care of Chris today. I dropped off some brownies, and I look at my watch, and I'm like, where'd you drop them off? And he said, in between the storm door and the front door. And I was like, his kids are getting out of school in 15 minutes. I had to drive over there about 100 miles an hour to prevent these kids from grabbing these THC brownies. Took them in there and like put them somewhere they couldn't find them. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was
Good call, Tom.
But for the record, I was not told they had kids. I was just told that they were interested in getting some brownies, and I know a guy. You know, I know a guy.
You're like a drug pusher now.
No,
Brownie pusher.
He called me. I didn't. It wasn't like I was like, "Hey, brownies for sale." He called me.
You were on the street corner selling brownies?
And then, but so, and I drop them off, and I thought I didn't know if they knew what they were doing, or obviously that happens with the kids. But I get a call at 8 o'clock.
It did get worse.
So I get a call at 8 o'clock from Cruz, and I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And go ahead and tell him.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about these brownies, and I'm also taking care of the wife, sort of, with my wife, and she's drinking wine and trying to cope, and everything's fine. And she goes home, and one of the kids calls and says, "Hey, my mom's laying all on the bathroom floor, and there's a bunch of throw up." I was like, okay. And then I send my wife over, and it's like, see what's going on. And she talks to her in the bathroom. She's like, yeah, I had a couple of those brownies or whatever.
Couple.
And she
Not
had,
a good move.
she had drank wine. And I called Tommy, and I said, hey, what's up with these brownies? And he goes, well, you should probably only have about a half or whatever.
Yeah. Did you think about leaving instructions with your doped out brownies?
Hold on a second.
So he
I'm
said,
getting a bad rap. Hold on.
Hey, wear it.
he says you should only have about a half. And I go, and then he drops, was she drinking?
There's a lot of people.
I said, yeah, I think she was drunk. And he's like, and he keeps going, ooh, ooh. And I was like, he goes, give it about 3 hours, she'll be fine.
Right.
It pretty much she was.
Midnight, she was like, well, about midnight, she'll be fine. But
From what you heard.
right. But what you got to understand is that anybody that is going into this experience for the first time, whether it be smoking or edibles, there's like a list of things you shouldn't probably do. And getting liquid courage to then get high is never a good idea. And she got them couple bottles or a couple glasses of wine down her. Not a good time to start. Bad mojo every time from that.
I'm going to write this down so when I retire, I can,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Chief Dodge, did you know this was going to be a tutorial on how to use THC? He has free reign to create his brownies.
Can we call me Steve and not
No.
Chief? Right?
And I didn't. Again, I got a guy, and I'm not a big edible guy. I don't like him that much. But when this bad incident happened, the brownies were given back to me by Joe. Joe's like, hey, they don't need these things anymore. They don't want to deal with this anymore. So I went over and got them. And let me tell you something. Those things had some kick to them. They had to knock the normal man out. And then how about Joe tells the story that the husband was a rather large individual.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he was like 6'4", 250 at least, 270.
Jeez.
And he was like too high and too limp to get into his hospital bed, sitting on a recliner.
Because of the brownies?
Probably, yeah.
Boy, this is bad for you.
No, it's bad for me. I had to blow my back out for about a month. Trying to lift
He
this
had to
thing
take him to the
around.
bathroom.
These were the worst brownies ever.
I'm sorry.
his intentions were true. He wanted to help.
Yeah.
Cancer patient.
Yeah, but he should have included instructions. apparently.
Exactly.
Should have been written on a note.
Exactly.
As much as he makes us take notes and write things down for here,
Yeah, there were no labels.
Yeah.
there was no
Tylenol
labels.
and Advil, they all come with dosage instructions and everything. But let's just go and throw these brownies in the door, and there you go.
All right, you guys listen to all the shows. Give us some critique and some funny stuff, or what do we got to do better, and
All right,
what shows were good.
So, to know your, I guess your guest better, Steve, and obviously the co-guest, I guess, Joe. we had a Halloween party, and I went as Steve, and I was a nerd, and I had a sweater vest on, and in Oxford it was way too small for me, and pants that came up to my ankles. And he went as a Hoosier, and he had that hat on that had all the hair coming out of the back. Yeah. So we were Joe and Steve, but we were just.
My God.
So you guys went as each other?
Yeah,
That's
we did that.
cute.
Now, the bad part about that, though, is I was planning on doing that, and somehow someone snitched me out
No.
to you because you didn't know that. I don't think you knew I was going as you, and then someone told you that.
I think your wife gave me the vest.
I think you're right. So I think she dimed me out on that deal. So.
Steve, you look like you're in great shape, staying in good shape. Last time I saw you was on a Channel 2 News going into ice cold water. That's coming up for the polar plunge. That's
Yes, it
coming up.
is. February 24th at Creve Coeur Lake. So we had a page for raising money for that, and hopefully this lake will be a little warmer than the last one.
What's it raise money for?
Special Olympics.
Okay.
Special Olympics. So yeah, Sunset Hills has a team. We'll try to include a link for anybody who
Yep.
We'll get that
click
to
on that
him.
and donate. But yeah, it's a great event. I know it's a big fundraiser for Special Olympics.
Good.
So I guess I'm excited to do it, but it's for a good cause.
You've
Hey.
done it several times, haven't you?
Just once. Last year was the first year I got roped into doing it.
Hey, Steve, do you want to tell what you did on Sunday? You want to give a props to that?
Oh yeah.
And I was a witness. He did it. Go ahead.
At First Form, Josh Becker and Josiah Merritt, who is Nick Sloan's cousin, they did what they call a WOD, or a workout of the day, in honor of Nick Sloan. So they did this Sunday at First Form, and it was a great event. There was probably close to 100 people there, if not more. And we did this insane workout to honor Nick, who is a big fitness guy himself. In fact, the first time I met him was at Powerhouse Gym in Shrewsbury. So, but it was a neat deal, and the way they did the workout was a lot of very symbolic with his badge number and that kind of thing. And but it was a lot of fun. It was really cool catching up with a lot of old mobile guys too. So
Yeah, we got a great picture. But Nick was killed on January 30th. What was the year?
24. No, 14.
no, not 14.
Oh, I'm sorry. Or 04.
It was
2004.
20-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And his wife and his son were there.
Yep.
And Gabe was there.
Yep.
It was
That's a
great.
good.
Gabe Keithley, who's a good friend of ours.
Right.
And that's I was going to bring that up, and Gabe Keithley, who is and like Steve said, is a tremendous friend of ours. He was Nick's partner at the time,
Yes.
and you, after your incident, you reached out to Gabe and really helped him through, and and
Even to this day, we still talk.
Right.
We still talk about it.
And I think that's important to both of you. Your guys' relationship is very important, and there's and you guys are both all close to us, and our relationship with you guys means just as much to us, because we love having you guys around and being part of the group. And I think we'll just end, Steve, if you want to just kind of wrap this whole thing up about the counseling you received and
Yeah, I mean, it's here. In my instance, it was obvious I was going to need counseling, but on this job, I think the day in and day out stuff we see, I don't think we really realize how it affects us sometimes. When you see, it could be a victim of a car crash where someone dies, or even a homicide or whatever. I think it just nicks away at you and nicks away at you, and that accumulates over time. And I don't think, there's any shame in going and getting help. And that's what it comes down to is, hey, you break an arm, you go to a doctor. Hey, in this job, with all the stuff we see day in and day out, it's a good idea, if you're feeling something, to go talk to somebody. And I don't think anybody will think lesser of you.
right.
In fact, might think more of you for trying to keep your head on straight. I mean, obviously, suicide in law enforcement is a huge problem, and I think there's more suicides. I could be wrong, but I think there's more suicides than there are officers killed in line of duty every year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously that gets a lot of attention, but
But there's help out there.
yeah,
There's
is.
help out there through
is.
many different ways,
Right.
whether it be counseling,
and you just got to tell somebody. Nobody knows how much, how bad it is, and how much you're hurting unless you tell somebody. And policemen, and they're masculine, and don't want to be thought of as not being tough, and all that's bullshit. And I think everybody here agrees that if you're out there and you need some help, just there's so many things that the policemen or our police departments are trying to do with counseling. And sometimes it takes I was talking to Gabe. Sometimes it takes more than one counselor. Counselors are just like everybody else. Some of them are different than others. And don't be afraid to say this counselor's not working and try something different. Because everything can work for each officer a little differently. Just like we talked about earlier, there's not a plan. There's not a plan in any of this stuff to take care of what you feel. And sometimes it's trial and error. And we implore people that need help to go get help. PTSD is real. Know several guys with it. It's a coping thing that it never goes away. But you have to find a way to deal with it. And is that would you say that's pretty correct, Steve?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's not a day I go by I don't think about Bob. I don't think about that day. And that's never going to stop.
But you've given yourself.
I've been able to manage it
Right.
and deal with it. So, but no, there's no shame in trying to get help. And if you see a friend struggling, have the courage to have a conversation with them about it too.
Chief, one of the big things a recurring theme that we have on the Brighter Side of Blue is when you decide to enter the law enforcement family, it's exactly what you just entered, a family, a huge family. And so many stories that were told by you tonight and shared by us epitomizes the family of it. I mean, a surprise birthday party because you graduated from law school. Mobile Reserve going out to your house the day of, training out there 12 cars deep. Nick Sloan event, the Polar Plunge, everything's just epitomizes that we are a family from start till end.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to sell through this podcast, that it is a great profession and we are a family and we bring you in and you can never leave.
Yep.
So
I say one thing, as Steve and Gabe are both blessed with, is great families. They got
Absolutely.
great wives, great kids, and that helps a lot, I'm sure.
A ton.
yeah. Thanks for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Joe.
thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Steve.
Joe,
we
thanks.
enjoyed it. And,
I think I need counseling now. Shit.
Boy, do you just have some brownies. All right. Peace.